Hey, everybody, it is Friday afternoon, and that means it's time for There's No Crying in Crochet, the podcast where we help you solve all of your everyday frustrations with crochet and laugh and celebrate and have all kinds of fun when we do it.
Yes.
I am Debbie from Madam Stitch, and my co host is.
Biz from Busy Crochet. Hi, everybody.
And we are here to help you today with a subject that drives us all crazy. So we're going to get into that in just a second. But first, business always first, right, Biz?
Always.
So,
I mean, it's in my
always.
name.
So, I know Biz is your name, so Biz is your game. Oh, I just did that on the fly. Okay, so subscribe to our YouTube channels. She is Busy Crochet, and I am Madam Stitch Crochet, because we are always coming up with new stuff. I'm currently mapping out some tutorials that will go with a pattern that's re-releasing in a week and a half, and doing some other tutorials and things like that. So watch the channel. Excuse me for all of that stuff. And okay, I'm gonna cough. I got a cold count on 4 weeks ago. And apparently, coughing is what we do. Okay. If you are watching on Facebook, give StreamYard permission to display your name. We want to be able to call you by name when we talk to you, but anonymous user is still okay. We'll still talk to you. Okay, but I'm going to hand it off to you because apparently things are not going well over here.
No problem.
I'm going to get my voice back, and I'm going to hand it off to you to talk about what's up this week.
What's up this week? Well, you go cough, and I'm going to I'll just share that life is changing again. Hi, Carolina from Sweden. It's good to see you here today. So as we just decided this last week that starting in July, I am going to have Maisie full-time all day, every day, instead of her going to daycare. There's just been a situation that's come up that Stephanie just doesn't want her to be there for at least her 1 year class, her toddler class.
Right.
So I'll have her for at least, 6 months to a year. And so I'm excited about it. I have gotten back on my water. It's time to get healthy, people. Just had my blood work done. So hopefully we'll, maybe they'll look at my hormones and say, yes, give her drugs. So
drugs are great.
What happens. We'll see what happens. What's been going on with you?
Oh gosh, just doing lots of crocheting. I'm finishing up the road trip blanket because I'm handing it off to my colleague who's co-hosting it with me, the crochet along with me. Yeah. We're actually meeting about 2 hours from here, and I'm going to pass it off to her. She's going to take the final photos of it and finish all the graphics. And that starts in a few weeks. And I'm working on my book. I just ordered. Okay, this is a dream, right?
Yeah.
You're writing a book. You now have permission to order all the yarn.
All the yarn.
Because you got it, right? Because you have to make all the samples. So that's what's going on in the business. Personal life, we've got lots of Little League baseball going on. It's been raining here so much that all the games. I saw a meme the other day about Pennsylvania.
Oh,
and it says Pennsylvania is a swamp with a sheets on every corner. Now, if you don't know what sheets is, in your part of the country, it might be Wawa, it might be 7-Eleven, it might be Quick Trip. Sheets is our version, is Pennsylvania's version of Quick Trip, 7-Eleven, all of those kinds of things.
Okay.
And so we're a swamp right now with a sheets on every corner. So at least you can fill up with gas once you drive out of the swamp. It's great. So we have lots of Little League baseball going on because lots of games have been canceled and they have to be made up. So anyway, that's what's happening around here.
All right.
So
hi, Dawn. Dawn just popped in.
Hey, Dawn. I'll let Biz type in a comment for you because I'm getting ready to introduce the episode. All right. Boogie down because here we go. All right. So this is our crochet skills episode. And this time we've talked about this before, but we're going to go hard, in depth, loads of stuff, talking about all the things when it comes to this yarn is not the same, the woes and wins of yarn substitution. All right. So we've all been there. If you've crocheted for a hot second, you've gotten a pattern, and for whatever reason that we'll talk about in a second, you want to substitute a yarn. So you go get your whatever your favorite yarn is, and you start to crochet the thing, and it just doesn't look like the picture. And it's not because you're a bad crocheter, it's because you didn't choose a yarn that suits that design.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about our epic fails, because you've got a great one. I love this one. So our epic fails to start off the show is, Biz, share the one that you shared with me.
Okay, so Stephanie was about 3, and I had picked up a like a pamphlet that had 6 or 7 little girls' dresses in it, and I really wanted to make her one of these dresses. And so I didn't know what DK weight yarn was, and so I thought I would just substitute it with Caron Simply Soft, because you can use Caron Simply Soft for anything, right?
Of course you cannot.
No. Actually, I think she was about 2.5 or 3. I don't know. She was really little. And the thing was, this dress was supposed to be for about her age. And I want to say halfway through it, and it was so heavy and so big. I mean,
oh my God.
It would have taken her until she was 5 to be able to wear it. And she would have been slogging around with this thing on, because it was like an Afghan. There was so much yarn in this thing. And so, of course, you start off with this little bodice, but then it had this ruffles, tons of ruffles.
Gosh. In Simply Soft.
Oh my God, there was so much yarn.
Now, if you don't know Caron Simply Soft, it is a fabulous, really soft. It has a beautiful sheen, kind of a halo to it. It's a great worsted weight yarn and it works best for, I've made accessories out of it.
Yeah.
I'm sure it makes a great blanket, although as heavy as it is,
a little pilly for blankets.
Yeah, you'd have to really choose a lacy pattern or something, create some holes in there. So granny squares would be great, but it's okay. So that's one thing that we're going to be talking about today. Exactly. And it's a worsted weight yarn that behaves completely different from all the other worsted weight yarns, all the other ones. And that's what makes it wonderful. Okay. So let's start off with talking about why we would even want to substitute a yarn, because you get a pattern, the designer tells you what yarn she used for that sample, you've got a beautiful picture of the finished product, and I say a lot of people buy a pattern because of the pictures. You want to recreate what the designer has created to begin with.
Yeah.
So why would you want to substitute? Why would you want or need to substitute yarn?
So personally, okay, so I can't remember what the name of the company is called, but she is a pattern designer as well as she models everything. And they've got one of those really super bougie hand painted, all the yarn is dyed and all this stuff. And it's always this really just top notch yarn. Patterns are gorgeous. I can't afford the yarn. Okay. So, and they're using 2 and 3 skeins of this $30 yarn. I just can't do it.
Right.
So what I do is I've gotten to the point where I'm very meticulous about this now, because I'm not spending money until I know that I know. But I will go through and I will match up as close as I can possibly get to the same information that's on their yarn,
right?
For how many grams it is, how many stitches you should be able to get per whatever. And I will go and find a cheaper version of it.
Yeah. So that's a big reason why a lot of people will substitute. Now, I will say in my design shop, I do a mixture of indie dyed yarn, which is the higher end, $30 a hank. You
Mhm.
usually have only 230 yards if in the
Mm.
hank.
Mhm.
Or I will use mainstream yarn that is more economical. So I mix and match because I want my makers to have the option.
Yeah.
And anytime I use a luxury yarn, I will usually offer some alternatives that I think
Mhm.
will work well. So
Mhm.
a yarn being too expensive is a big reason why. I think another one, I've noticed this with patterns that I designed maybe 4 or 5 years ago, the
Mhm.
yarn is discontinued.
Mm.
So as a designer, I will go back and make it in a current yarn so that my makers don't have to do that for themselves. But if that hasn't happened, you're going to have to substitute a yarn
Yep.
for the original,
Yep.
right?
For sure.
What other reasons can you think of why we would need to substitute or want to substitute yarn?
Maybe you have an allergy to whatever is in the original yarn.
Mhm.
If you've got a sensitivity to either wool or, like you can't
Mhm.
use cotton or, I mean, like whatever reason,
Right, right.
you find something in an
Mhm.
alternative that works for you.
Yeah, I can't use for things that I make for myself, I can't use wool. The only thing I can use that is wool is superwash DK
Okay.
merino. Those fibers apparently are treated in a way that keeps them from being itchy. But I can't wear wool. It's just too hot. Rabbit hair, Angora, so gorgeous. And it makes up the most gorgeous things,
Yes.
but it is like wearing your dog's coat. It's just it fuzzes off. It's so incredibly dense and hot.
Oh my gosh.
Right, so those things I know just to avoid, even though they're absolutely gorgeous. So I
Yes.
stick with the plant fibers and the artificial fibers, that sort of thing.
Yes. I apologize. I keep yawning.
It's
We've
me. I put her to sleep every week. This is a thing.
No, it's like because I don't really talk to anybody, and then all of a sudden I'm talking a
Mhm.
lot, and my brain is on fire. So Dawn even mentioned that a lot of yarn changes every year, and the colors are updated and
Oh
stuff.
my gosh, it drives me nuts.
Mm-hmm.
Especially
Yeah.
a mainstream company who has had enormous success with a line of yarn. They go, "Oh, I think we should just do something different just because
Because
let's mix it
everybody
up."
loves this yarn,
And
it's time to
and the
change it.
rest, right, and the rest of us are going, "What are you doing?
What are you doing?
What is
I just
happening
found this.
here?"
Yes. Yes.
Or the last reason I can think of is that you just simply want to use something else. You prefer a different look.
Yeah.
You love the pattern, but you want to use something that's different to give it a unique look, and that's
Well, and
great.
sometimes people are really brand specific, like they're just
Uh-huh.
loyal to a brand, and you know, go for it.
Right? All right. So the first thing we're going to talk about today is understanding yarn weights.
Mm,
Now, yarn weight is not actually a weight,
right.
it's a thickness.
Yeah.
Right? So, and it kind of and the categories are they're narrow enough, but it's a spectrum within each yarn weight.
Yes.
So when you're looking at the label on a skein, for instance, most of the yarn companies now that are mainstream have started putting the little skein with the number on it.
Hmm.
So one is lace weight, two is sport weight, 3 is DK, 4 is worsted/Aran. You get the drift.
Yeah.
Now, I work with worsted weight and DK weight almost exclusively,
Same.
right? So
Although I do a lot
when
of
I'm
fingering
doing
as well, but yeah.
yeah, you do. I'm starting to get into that a little bit because I'm one of those who doesn't want to take 5 years to
Oh
finish a
no, I
project.
understand.
But
It's a
there
commitment.
are ways, yeah, there are ways to use fingering weight in crochet that don't take 5 years. But I'll give you an example. DK weight. I know pretty much every single time when I use an Indie Dyer's Superwash Merino DK, that's pretty much in the middle of that DK range. However, I have gotten some that are sitting on the light worsted end of that range. So they're almost a worsted. You could even substitute them for a worsted weight yarn. The same goes for worsted weight now here in America. And correct me if I'm wrong, Biz, but this has been my observation. Worsted weight signifies kind of that middle of the road in that category. Aran for us signifies something a little it's not bulky weight, number 5.
It's not full on chunky either.
It's not full on chunky. It's fat worsted. Now I know I'm pretty sure, and you can correct me if I'm wrong again, in the UK, Aran is interchangeable with worsted. The words.
And I've heard also,
for the most part,
and anybody else out there, if you know differently, like a size number, like 10. They've also, it's not the same as our size number 10 with the thread.
Right, it's a 10 ply or something, or something like that, right? That's worsted weight. So you kind of have to look at where that yarn comes from. So that's what the numbers mean.
8 ply too.
Right.
I feel like one of my one of my testers, she's in Australia, and I believe she uses an 8 ply in replacement for the worsted stuff that I use.
Yeah, because I think 6 ply might be DK weight, something like that. And I haven't figured that out because I haven't found an authoritative source for telling me what the equivalents are. So I'm not quite sure. So you look at the yarn. Let's say your pattern calls for a worsted weight. You can't just pick something in the same category. It's not going to work. So
and it's brand. You have to watch your brands too, because if you're using a worsted weight, now Lion brand Wool Ease calls their regular Wool Ease a worsted weight yarn. However, if you're using like a Hobby Lobby, I love this yarn, worsted weight yarn, the thicknesses are very different. Wool Ease is a very thin or a lighter, skinnier. You know, we were talking about there's these variations among the same little box. Wool Ease is at the thin end, then there's the regular, and then there's that fat. Like I would call Karen Wintuck is also considered a oh good God, what is the word? A worsted. But I would consider them a fat worsted. Well, East is a skinny worsted, and then Hobby Lobby's right in between those two.
Exactly. All right. Now there is a reliable way, she said with her ruler, emphatically, there is a way to get really close, other than other ways that we're going to talk about in a second, that you can look at 2 different yarns and see if they match. Now, we talked about in this category, understanding yarn weights, that the weight category is a range. There's a thing called wraps per inch, a task that you can perform with your yarn. I'm not going to demonstrate, but I've got my handy dandy ruler here. You don't start at the end of your ruler, right? You don't start over here with the 1 inch to the edge, because that's too wonky. So you pick something maybe in the 4 or 5 range, so that you are wrapping the yarn around the ruler from, and it's basically a 1 inch width that you're wrapping around. You can do the same thing on your knitting needle or your hook or whatever. And you're wrapping the yarn from 1 inch mark to the next inch mark.
Wraps per inch.
Wraps per inch. Literally wraps per inch. They can't be overlapped. There can't be spaces between them. You get them just abutting each other within that 1 inch range. And then you don't pull those strands, right? And if you look on the Craft Yarn Council website, they have, I'll tell you exactly what the name of the page is. It's how to measure wraps per inch, which is indicated by WPI. It's a really tricky title.
Mhm.
But what they do is they give you a range for every weight category.
Uh-huh.
For instance, worsted media, they call it medium, 9 to 12 wraps per inch.
Okay.
Now, say one worsted has 9 wraps per inch and the other
Mhm.
worsted has 12. Those are not equal
Mhm.
substitutes. They're not going to work. So
Mhm.
you want to get something that's really close to the same number when you measure those wraps per inch.
Yes.
Okay. So you were talking about, this was a fun one, fiber content and texture. Oh
Mhm.
my gosh. Okay.
Mhm.
So this is one, I love yarn that has a slight halo to it because it just gives it that warm and cozy look,
Little bit of
as well
fuzz
as,
to it.
right, a little bit of fuzz,
Yeah.
but that's going to add to to it's going to make it bigger. You
Yes.
know, that little halo is going to make those wraps per inch less, so you're going to, yeah. So that's something that you need to connect. It, for instance, mercerized cotton is
Yes.
just straight up short fibers mercerized into a
It's
strand.
almost like a hard
There's a
cotton.
strand. There is no halo to that.
No.
Zip. So you can't change mercerized cotton for an acrylic. It's just not
No.
gonna work.
No. And you can't even
Mm.
change mercerized cotton for an unmercerized cotton. I mean, like, there's such a
Exactly.
difference between the way
Mhm.
that they're made. They
Exactly.
they're gonna give you 2 very different products.
Exactly.
Very
Right,
different.
so you have to, they give you different drape. Your
Mhm.
resulting fabric has different characteristics.
Mhm.
I love crochet fabric that flows.
Mhm.
So I either create a fabric that has, it's less dense, or I choose a yarn that has a little airiness to it.
Yeah. I actually have some mercerized cotton here that um I chose mercerized for. I mean, this matches that piece back there, which I've been working on since last year, so I really need to get it done. But anyway, so I chose this because it stands up a little bit firmer
Mhm.
in the design, and it's a little less. I mean, like, I want it to be soft and flowy, but I wanted
Right,
it to also have some body to it. So
right.
mercerized is great when you're looking to create, say, like a swimsuit cover or something like that, that you need to actually have, where it's not just falling off your body.
Right, and it's not stretching with wear,
Right.
all of that kind of stuff. So garments behave differently from home decor, from accessories, all of that kind of stuff has to be considered
Yeah.
when you're, I mean, ideally, if you're substituting a yarn, especially for a garment, you want to
Mhm.
find a yarn. Not only does it have the same wraps per inch, but you want to find something that has pretty close to the same fiber content.
Yes. Yes. Now, I will say, and just because I've done enough of the back and forth with them, um, the mercerized cotton paint box has a really nice cotton that
Ooh.
is really nicely interchangeable with the
Mhm.
mercerized cotton.
I
So
agree.
just throwing that out there for anybody who's
I agree. It's
wondering.
very soft and has a
Mhm.
little bit of pliability, but it has that structure you need
Yep.
from a mercerized cotton, which is great.
Yep.
Um, yeah, so plant fibers, animal fibers, synthetic fibers, they all behave differently,
For
and
sure.
blends are going to behave according to the percentage you have of each part of that blend. So you just have to look at all of that along with, what are you making,
Yep.
right?
Absolutely.
All right.
Well,
Now,
and do
this
you
is
want
one that,
sticks and twigs in your stuff? Because you can get some really, really raw,
yeah,
raw, like yarn,
yeah.
and you're gonna end up with a stick or twig or two.
You're wearing a sweater, and all of a sudden it goes, oh, what was that?
Yeah, poking me.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, picking the stuff out of it. Okay. So next up, which is a great segue into this one, is oh, well, you don't want to do that. You want to do this. Yes, texture affects stiffen. And
Oh,
you
it
love this
does.
one. This is a big one for you
It
because you
does so
love all
much.
of the texture and
Mhm.
texture stitches and stuff like that. So my favorite yarn of Halo having a slight halo is not going to work so well if you really need stitch definition, right?
No. You really want to stick with your very sleek, very sleek yarns. If you're looking to, okay, so I'm just going to throw out a sweater that I made for my daughter. It was the Exit Organzy by Annie's, and it is a knee length, long sleeve, highly textured. I mean, there is texture on every
Wow.
last piece of that sweater. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. But I wouldn't dare try to make that with something that had any kind of a fuzz to it, or even any kind of um oh, what's the word? Not gradient, but the other one.
Is that ombre?
Not ombre, where it comes with all the colors in it.
Tonal. No, I think isn't gradient the
Gradient's the
different
one where it goes
colors?
nice and soft into colors. Oh my God, Biz, I can't believe you. Anyway, a really highly colored yarn that would look like this when you're done with it.
Right.
You're going to lose all of that texture and all of that definition.
Mhm.
You just worked so hard to put in there. So anytime that you're going for anything with super texture in it, even if it's just like a finger weight yarn or something like that, blocking is your friend. And also go with just a straight full color. Don't do
Mhm.
anything where you've got a lot of a mess in there, because you're going to lose all of that texture.
Right, so that's a really good point. When you, let's say the designer made a sweater in a solid color,
Variegated.
but
Sorry,
you
that's the word.
variegated, there it is.
Oh my
Nicely
God.
done. That's okay. It was there all the time. You wouldn't want to choose a variegated yarn,
No.
right? So
No.
no. So those are some things also to consider. What the yarn is beautiful, but does it work for what the effect of the design is?
Exactly.
That you're going for. Let's see if there's any smooth versus fuzzy versus novelty yarns can all be used to either obscure or highlight those stitches. So
Right.
just
Right.
be aware of what that design is going for. Um,
And
let's
all
see.
of them have their purpose. They're all out there for their own
Yeah.
purpose. It's just
Mhm.
finding the right purpose for that yarn.
Correct. Okay. This is one that we absolutely hate. Well, this is my nemesis here, and that is gauge. So for, gauge and blocking were things that I just never did. I
Yeah,
do them now,
I do too.
cause I learned,
Yeah.
but, along with wraps per inch. So before you've ever made anything, you do the wraps per inch to see how the two yarns compare. You also need to do a gauge swatch. Your designer, in most cases, I'd say 98% of cases, has given you a gauge swatch, hopefully in the stitch pattern that you're going to be doing. You need to take the substituting yarn, the one that you want to replace the original yarn with, and do a gauge swatch and do a big enough one that you really get an idea of whether that yarn's going to work. And if you're making a sweater or a garment of any kind, you want to keep checking that gauge, because your gauge changes according to your mood, according to how long you've been crocheting that day, all of that kind of stuff. So gauge is super duper important. And if it says look for, the gauge swatch will say either blocked or unblocked. So you need to do the exact same thing with your gauge swatch to see if it works.
And then one of the reasons why gauge is so important is because, especially if you are, say, making a garment, I don't design them, but I make a lot of them for just family members and stuff. But for instance, my daughter's ex-boyfriend, who's a complete putz, but we won't talk about that. When she was dating him, he wanted this sweater, and I believe, oh gosh, please help me. She does all the design. Is it Melissa? Is her name Melissa? We interviewed her.
You give me, Michelle.
Michelle, thank you. I knew it was an M. So Michelle designed the sweater that is on Red Heart, and it's like a boyfriend sweater or something like that. Super simple, super basic. But this child had a really long body and super long arms. Okay, so I needed to then figure out, after I hit gauge, how many repeats I needed to do within
Mhm.
that gauge to reach the hip to shoulder, armpit, and then the length, all of that stuff. It all matters.
Right.
Gauge applies so much when you're making modifications to a pattern
Yep.
to fit somebody perfectly.
And just to give our friend Michelle a shout out, she
Yes.
has an entire series
Yes.
of helpful tips about how to size men's garments so
Mhm.
that they fit.
Yeah, she's
So
got an entire book of nothing just I love her stuff because she really, men are such an overlooked genre in so many different places, like
mhm.
that deal with fashion or,
Yeah,
handmade things and stuff like that. I don't know why they don't think men need stuff, but she's got a whole, like, her whole thrust is about dressing men, and I love it.
yeah, and it helps that she has a husband and 2 boys
Yes,
who are
yes,
now teenagers, so she has the sizes right
the
there.
props, yes,
I know, the props. Alright, so gauge is important,
yes.
wraps per inch important, fiber co all of those things are important. Next up, you've substituted your yarn. Now
Mhm,
you have to figure out how much you need
mhm.
because not all yardages are the same as you
No,
know,
no.
right? So the quickest way, well, for the sweater, let's just use the sweater you just talked about.
Mhm.
You had to figure out how much extra yarn you needed
Yes.
for the guy you were crocheting that sweater for because
Mhm.
you needed extra stuff. So one of the easiest ways to figure out how much of your substitute yarn you need is to take the original yarn,
Mhm.
and in the pattern again, the designer should tell you how many yards or meters per skein
Mhm.
of that yarn you're going to be using. So let's throw out 230 per skein.
Yeah.
But the yarn that I have only has 130 per skein,
Mhm.
right? I know I'm using weird numbers, but that's okay.
That's a big
Let's
difference.
say that's a huge difference, right? So if you needed 5 skeins of the original, you multiply 230 by 5
Yeah.
to get the total, which I think is 1150 if my math is
Here, let's
okay.
find out. You said 5
Oh,
by 230. 5 times 1150. You're so good. Look at you and your math.
oh my! Yeah, don't ask me to divide. Okay,
Don't ask me to do
then
it again.
don't ask me to go backward. So now you need at least 1150 yards of yarn.
Uh-huh.
Divide 1150 by the new per
The one
skein, which is
the 150.
130, and you'll need how many skeins of that yarn?
Almost 8.
Yeah. Right. And so another thing that a designer will do is say, for this size, I need X number of yards. For this size, I need. And so you look at the size that you're making,
Uh-huh.
how many yards that's required, and
Mhm.
then divide that number by the yards per skein
Mhm.
of your substitute yarn, and you get the number of skeins that you need to buy of your new yarn.
Mhm. One of the things that I've done is I have written down over time, I've made swatches of worsted weight, DK, fingering, all that stuff with a variety of different size hooks. So I know exactly what my personal gauge is. Because I know that even though there's a gauge swatch that they want you to do for the patterns, a lot of times I base it on what I know my personal gauge is because I have trouble changing to fit somebody else's gauge. So that helps me to know whether or not I'm going to have to adjust my hook or that kind of, or the yarn itself.
Mhm.
So I have this written down, and then I use that gauge information a lot of times because so many times I shop online, I have no idea.
Mhm.
I've never touched this yarn before, so I'll use
Right.
my personal gauge to find out whether or not, because it'll usually tell you, so many stitches
Right.
per 4 inches or
That's a
whatever.
really that's a really good plan, and when you do that, you can, usually it's by single crochet per inch, single
Yeah, I
crochet
just make
rows,
a
something like
square
that.
swatch.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great idea. I've got things to do now. I need to make some
Because
swatches.
you've got
Thanks.
nothing else going on.
I No, I got nothing else I'll just go grab something off the shelf. Okay. So just be aware that not all skeins are created
No, they
equally,
definitely are not.
and if your yarn is thicker or denser, you probably need more skeins because you'll need a different number. Let's just put it
Yes,
that way. So
yes.
you want to just calculate that. All right. So those are the specifics. We've got a few more tips that we would love to
Mhm.
share with you. One of them we've talked about already. What project are you making and what is it going to be used for? That's
Yes.
huge,
Hmm.
right?
Yes. Application matters.
Mhm.
Because you want to make sure that, because you may be looking at something and you go, oh gosh, I don't like that yarn, it's too itchy, or it's too hard, or it's too this, or I've worked with it before and it was evil, that kind of stuff. We all have our emotions about yarn, we just do.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
let's be honest with each other. We have our feelings, and so there's lots of times I look at it and I go, I don't want to make it out of that, so I want to make it out of this. And then you have to go through the
Mhm.
whole mind thing. What am I using it for?
Exactly.
Is this yarn going to hold
Mhm.
up? Because the reason why this person used this yarn is because it works for the application.
Right.
So now we need to make sure that what we're replacing it with also works for the application.
Right. So home decor,
Yes.
usually, blankets, acrylic, wool blends, things like that, cotton
Hardy,
blends,
it'll stand up to use.
right? Garments,
Hmm.
that I would say garments, anything that's shaped or sized has
Hmm.
to be super specific and
Yes.
super close. Baby blankets, you want something that's suitable for baby and maybe
Washable.
that, right?
Yep.
So hyperallergenic, easy to care for. So all of those things are considerations when
Hmm.
you look to substitute yarn. And while we're on the subject, washability and care instructions.
Hmm.
Can you take care of it?
Yes. Yes. Because, once again, you look at the pattern and the reason why the person or whoever designed it chose it. Now, okay, so yes, there's going to be people out there who choose really special yarn. I'm just going to call it special because it's outside of my realm of, I would never use that. A,
Right?
because it's just too much work to take care of. I just
Hmm.
wouldn't. I would look for an
Yeah.
alternative I could chuck in the washer.
Now I don't put any handmade things in the washer, with the exception of the occasional scarf that I can put in a laundry bag
Mhm.
that doesn't get all tussled around. But I generally hand wash everything.
Yeah.
So, but you
I
still
don't
have to
ever
take
keep
care of
anything
it.
I make, so
So let somebody else take care of
yeah.
it.
I always try to make sure that it's
But
like, if they're like me and they're not going to, n- like, I don't want to, on a new mom, give them a hand wash baby item like that. Come on, it's never going to get washed.
no,
Nobody has
and
time for all
baby
that.
is not going to be kind to that baby blanket.
Mm-mm.
All right. Um, Ply structure. So this is something that we don't think about.
Yeah.
The
And I'm
more
going to be honest,
ply,
I'm not real well versed in this.
no, so I'm just going to read what I have here because I did an outline that says a two-ply yarn might have more bounce and halo,
Mm.
while a four-ply yarn will usually show stitch definition more clearly. Now, I will say that American-made yarns don't generally, well, I don't know. I lie. I don't pay attention to ply because I pay more attention to um, uh, the weight, but I'm gonna look up my favorite yarn
Uh-huh.
on Lion Brand, and I'm gonna see, come on, people, bring me to my page.
The only time
I'm
I've
gonna
ever paid
see,
attention to ply is when they don't twist it. And it's one of those ones that peels apart, and there's, oh, okay, so there's 5 or 6 pieces of yarn
yeah,
here, and now I
o
got to try and get everybody in there, but there's nothing holding it together.
or if you're working on something and it just keeps splitting on you, that's when you notice it. Okay, it's not on that page.
I don't
One that
know if
I'm
you
working
have
with
you ever used
right
Boo by Lion Brand?
uh-uh. Mm-mm.
Don't.
Oh, okay. All right. Never gonna go
It's
there. All right.
gorgeous.
Well,
It's so soft. It's silky. Like it's like working.
here it is.
It's like having a cloud in your hand when you're working, but when you're
Oh,
doing the stitches,
sweet.
it splits so much.
Mm,
Oh my god!
gotcha. All right. Now, Heartland is what I'm working with right now. And I've heard people complain about it splitting and stuff.
It's a little
There was
splitty.
only one place in the blanket where I had a little bit of trouble with it
Uh huh.
because I was working through stitches, not into
Oh.
stitches. All right. So for the border, and I'm looking at the website, nowhere in this description do they say how many plies it is.
Yeah. See, it's
Because
not
that's
something
just
that's
not
even
what
really
we
brought up in America. Like we don't
know.
talk about plies a whole lot unless you make your own yarn.
Yeah, exactly. So the ply can affect how your stitches look and how your fabric behaves, stretchy
Mhm,
versus firm. But that's just something that, like you said, in the US, we just don't pay attention to it. But
mhm.
it is something that can have an effect.
And how
Um,
tightly your plies are twisted and all of that stuff. I mean,
mhm,
like we don't just
exactly.
twist. And I'll say that yeah, this is really twisted really tight, like a mercerized cotton. It has a very tight twist. But I don't look at it. I don't know. I just don't base my yarn off of that kind
No,
of
it's
stuff.
not, it's no, but it's something that other nationalities think
For
about.
sure.
Now,
For sure.
now stretch and elasticity, right? Mercerized cotton has zero.
None.
Zipola. But so if you try to, I think it's natural fibers like wool, animal fibers
Yes.
have a lot of stretch to them.
Yes.
Plant fibers, not so much because the fibers are
Little less.
shorter. So the way that they spin them creates a less stretchy fabric.
Hmm.
So bamboo, cotton, things like that won't have a lot of stretch to them.
Hmm.
So you've got to look at what you're making. Does your piece depend upon a little bit of give? Does there
Hmm.
need to be some ease to it?
Hmm.
If it's a blanket, probably not.
No.
And then again, you don't want to make a blanket out of a super stretchy one because now you've got this giant, it's a baby blanket, but it's this giant piece of things that never retains its shape, right? That
Yes.
would
I
be
mean,
horrible.
I've done that too. But going back to the sweater that I made for the Putz boyfriend, that was made with Hobby Lobby. And here's the reason why I call him a Putz, because he specifically asked for this sweater. He chose it. So he knew what it looked
Oh,
like. Okay. And then when he got it and it literally fit him exactly the same way that the picture, he was upset because it wasn't like tight, like it didn't fit his body like a form. And okay, so he never wore it, never used it. It was an absolute waste of
right.
time. But anyway, that one is one of those ones where the sweater itself was a little bit larger, but it did need to have a little bit of an ease to it. So I used a Hobby Lobby acrylic yarn for it. I mean, that's what it calls for. It's just a regular worsted weight yarn. And I used the Hobby Lobby and it had quite a bit of stretch to it, as
Yeah.
opposed to the sweater that I made for my daughter out of paint box cotton. And that has almost
Hmm.
no stretch to it at all.
Right. Yeah. So it just kind of depends upon what the structure of that garment is,
Hmm.
or whatever you're making, that you want to pick something that has comparable stretch to it.
Yeah, because if you're doing stuff around necklines, around arms and stuff like that,
Mm.
and you need to
Hmm.
have any kind of stretch at all, like if you're a bigger
Yep.
person like I am, I can't do things like mercerized cotton on my arms because
Yep.
we're gonna have
Right.
an appendage fall off because it
Bec-
got
The
stuck.
blood flow was cut
Yeah.
off. All right. Last but not least,
Hmm.
is the yarn available? That seems to be like a no-brainer, but is it discontinued? And the reason that's important is you get the amount that you think you need. What
Yeah.
happens when you get to the end and you realize you need more? Are you going to be able to find it?
Yeah.
Is it going to still be there? And let's be honest, we all have works in progress
Hmm.
that are not just 3 months old. I'm just going to say it.
Mhm.
They've been there for a while. And if you pick it back up, are you going to be able to find the yarn you need? And the other thing is dye lots are different. I'm going to give you a perfect
Yes.
example. So for the blanket I'm making, I'm using a cream color, an off-white, for the rows between the stitches and for the border. Now, I ordered so much in one batch, but then I had a couple of skeins from a previous batch, and
Yeah.
granted, they're a fairly older batch because they've rebranded the label and everything.
Holy
And I
cow.
thought, it's not going to make any difference. Yeah, I started trying to use one of the old ones, and I kept looking at it thinking something is off, but I can't tell what it is. And the older dye lot is just slightly has a yellowish cast. So if I had kept making the border out of that old one, you would have been able to see two
Mm.
different colors when you tried to take photos.
Yeah.
So I had to go back and just, use the new one. So dye lots are a thing.
They are.
Lion
Even in
brand,
even in when they say there's no dye lot, it matters. You wanna
it's
buy
a
like,
batch.
you wanna buy it all right now. Like, if you've got something very specific that
Yep.
you're making, you wanna get all of the color, especially things like whites. Well, actually all
Oh
of them.
yeah. Oh my
But,
gosh.
whites are terrible, where one is more yellow
Yeah.
and one is more bright white, and it's awful. And I've had that happen in no dye lot yarns where, like, you're supposed
Mhm.
to be able to walk in and get it and it's gonna match. It doesn't sometimes.
No, I'm not picking on Lion Brand because honestly, they're one of my favorite companies, and I buy oodles and gobs of
Yeah,
their yarn.
I love
Um,
Lane Brand.
but I was making a blanket from yarn I had in my stash,
Uh-huh.
and went and bought some more of the same color. And again, I think they had reformulated the colors just slightly because it's darker
Oh,
than the
wow.
original.
Yeah.
So now I have to ditch one of them, and it it, it just proves that sometimes you can take stuff out of your stash if you have enough. Sometimes you can't because of the difference in the colors. It just depends.
We've got a comment from Sarah, from the UK.
Yeah.
She says, I have trouble getting certain yarn here in the UK that I see regularly on YouTube and patterns from the
Mhm.
UK. I do like Lion Brand though. Um, where well, I have a tendency now, is it usually more like American mainstream yarns that you're seeing on YouTube, or are they UK yarns that you're having trouble getting a hold of? Because I know that like Wool Warehouse is specifically very that's where I shop for a lot of my yarns,
Yeah.
only because I actually prefer the UK yarns. Oh, US.
US
Okay.
patterns. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a
I don't.
common thing. Like Hobby Lobby
What
does not
about,
ship outside the States at all.
what about, let me check out Webs. There's a big distributor
Oh,
called Webs. And I think they ship internationally, if I'm not
I'm pretty
mistaken.
sure they do. The other UK place that I go is Love Crochet. Between them and Wool,
Lovecrafts? Oh,
yeah, Love Crafts. Between
yeah.
them and Wool Warehouse is where I get a lot of my yarn from. But
I don't know what their shipping policy is. You can go, it's yarn.com, but the store's name is Webs. Um, and I see if it says here.
they should
Shipping
have the shipping
information. Here we
information.
go. Great. I love your ad. Go away. Get your order packed and shipped, shipping charges, priority mail. It okay, here we go. Shipping. I don't think they ship outside the US.
Really? Oh my gosh.
They ship to the 48 contiguous states, Alaska and Hawaii, and the US territories with APOs and FPOs.
That's a
So
bummer.
yeah, I mean, I would do an online search. I don't know what Lion Brand's shipping policy is, but
Mhm.
you can order directly from them. Let me
Yeah,
see
I
if they
usually go
have a
directly
shipping
to like
policy.
Yarnspirations.
Yeah,
Um, because they are a Canada-based company and they kind of own everybody now, like Red Heart and Karen and
Yep.
they have Karen, right?
Lion brand has international shipping.
Yeah.
I would also check, a lot of people use yarns from /We Crochet.
Mm-hmm.
We Crochet is crochet.com, and you can check on there and
They
see if
have
they
very nice
ship
yarn.
internationally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I would go to the individual companies, American companies, and see if you can find, yeah, shipping from Ice Yarns to the UK is very expensive, but I see Ice Yarns are international. Gotcha. So we, being in the US, we order from Wool Warehouse, and I will say I just placed an order with them, and in less than a week I had it, and it was
I
very
love that stuff.
economical.
Yeah, and she did
Right?
say she shops at Warehouse all the time. I wish
Mhm.
Warehouse was closer. I love their yarns.
Yep, I do too. And but they don't carry Lion brand, I don't think.
No, they don't. They don't really. I don't think they carry much for American brands, do they?
Mm-mm. I don't think so.
But if you want something like we were talking about, that substitution of paint box yarns, that's at Lovecrafts. They're the only ones who
Mhm.
carry that yarn.
Yeah, I love paint
Oh, I do
box.
too. Fell in love with
They're
them.
Simply Aran, they're Simply Cotton. Cotton Blend is the Simply, what's it called?
Yay! Sarah's
Simply
yarn coming
Wool.
tomorrow.
Yeah, I forget what it was, but I love all their yarns too. So
Sarah's yarn is coming tomorrow.
sweet. We love that.
Yes.
All right, well, Biz, do you have anything else to add to our many things about yarn substitution? Any tips? Any stories? Any stuff?
Oh no, but Jenna did bring to my mind Wool Warehouse. I like cake yarns if they're cotton. Another company that I really like is Hobie. They are international, and I believe
Oh, right.
I'm not sure where they're located, but they
Yep.
are warehouse or where.
I think they're Dutch. I
Yes,
think
that's
they're
what I wanted to say
Dutch.
too, but I didn't want to. Doesn't. Oh, okay. Wool Warehouse does do some Lion brand and some Red Heart.
Oh, good.
Oh, well, we are wrong.
Nicely
Um,
done.
so yeah, I mean, just I would go and check out Wool Warehouse, just to see if they've got what you need. Just especially if you're overseas, and especially with all the like shipping issues and the tariffs and all this extra stuff that's happening
You
right
know
now.
what I'm going to do? I'm going to write this. This was the one that you mentioned. Hobie yarn.
Yes.
They've got some
Hobie.
really nice
Oh,
stuff.
Sarah says they're Norwegian. So,
Oh, Norwegian. They're up in that part of Europe somewhere.
yeah.
So there's Hobie, and then Wool Warehouse,
And
UK.
Neve at Woolly Chicken Crafts, she said that Scapies has recently launched a cotton whirl. So if you can find a Scapies dealer, they're also
And that
really,
is
really
spelled. I love how this is spelled. This is so great. That does not look like scapies to me. It looks like
No.
sheep jizz.
Scapies. I mean, you got to throw at the back of the throat kind of thing.
Do you? Okay, I'm not going to go there because that's just nasty. But
they're wonderful.
They're wonderful.
Yeah,
I love their yarn.
There's a lot of resources out there that, quite honestly, like I have a tendency to shop. I go straight to the websites anymore because even going to big box store websites, you can't get anything because everything's sold out all the time. So I would, just start exploring, and you'll be amazed at what you are able to find. But if you ever need any help, reach out to people like who are doing designing and things like that, and see if we can help you find a substitute, especially if it's their design.
Yeah.
But anyhow,
absolutely.
Anything else to add to this? I don't really have anything to add. I mean, I think that we've kind of covered everything. Yeah, pretty much.
I agree. Let's see. It looks like we've got shapies. LOL. I heard someone Dutch say it. Shape. You know what? We're just gonna go with Um, I'm just going to print it out and say that yarn.
We really like them.
Yes, we really like them a lot. Okay, so we end every episode after we've given you all the knowledge with what have you been watching this week? Biz, what's up?
Lots of NCIS and trash reality TV, because that's what we do. And last night I finally figured it out, because I offered my husband the third season of Reacher. I'm like, should we start it? Should we start it? Let's do it. He's like, I just can't. And I'm like, why? What is wrong with you? He said, I don't want to have something that I have to pay attention to. At the end of the day, he just wants something that's mindless. And so that's why we spend so much time on crap reality TV. But we decided at least last night to watch a soldier competition. I cannot remember what it's called for the life of me, but it's where reality stars and old sports people go to these military people and get put through this like boot camp thing. So that one's a little bit more interesting. It's at least not the stupid trash reality TV like The Circle. We've been watching that one, rotting my brain cells.
I don't do reality TV. Oh, no, I lie. Reality TV I do are cooking competitions.
Nice.
But only British. I only do the British ones. I did.
I would watch those, but my people are like, I'm so sick of watching people cook. Why do you care? You just told me you don't want to think about it. You don't have to think about it. Whatever.
It's entertaining. But what did we watch? Oh, the Great British Baking Show has a professionals version where they bring in teams of a team of two from famous restaurants around the world, and they are put to the test. The two hosts, the judges will go, I want you to make something I've never heard before on planet Earth.
Right.
And you need to make 36 of these, and you need to do it in a tower, and you need to have these elements in it. You've got 4 hours. Are you kidding me? And this past episode we watched, there were 2 teams that the towers just crashed and burned before they were judged. Like, they are just not having. So you feel badly. Say what now?
Was it a Croquembouche? Where they
I have
to make the little tree.
I don't know. I just watch it because it's fun to watch. That and lots of baseball. Of baseball. The Phillies are the number 1 team in the National League right now, so lots of Phillies are going on. Although tonight's game starts at 10:40 because the United States is thousands of miles across and they're over on the other coast.
Oh, Lord Jesus.
So the game starts at 10:40, so we won't be watching that, but that's all right.
Yeah. We have gotten into some of the Korean reality shows on Netflix, and some of them are really interesting. Some of them are really irritating to listen to because they repeat themselves a lot. If somebody says, hey, so they do it again, hey, and through the whole thing, they're like this. But there's a rugby one, and so Tony likes watching it just because it gives him the opportunity to watch people play rugby. So whatever.
Gotcha.
We do the best we can with what we have, and yeah, that's it. Now someone come. Did you see what Sarah said? She said, I'm rewatching Game of Thrones while doing granny squares, but I put it on pause if my husband comes in and anyone's naked. That's hilarious.
That's great. Oh my gosh.
Person of Interest. I was watching that. The Good Doctor.
I am rewatching Person of Interest. Love it.
Jenna's watching Shark Tank. And News watching Great British Bake Off, MasterChef. Have you ever watched the 24 and 24? That's on Prime.
Mm-hmm.
It's a reality. It's a competition show where the 24 chefs start out and they have to cook for 24 hours. And they get knocked off as they go. We watched the first one. It was really, really quite interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that one's a fun one if you like food competitions.
Ready, steady. It sounds like we have a lot of chef shows going.
Lots
Yep.
of cooking
Nave,
shows,
Great
newer
British
Star
Bake
Trek movies. Okay, those are good
Oven.
too.
Yep. We've got all the things going on.
Mhm.
Yep. I'm finishing up my network TV shows. So I just watched the NCIS season 22
Oh boy.
finale, catching them up. Matlock, Elsbeth. I'm really bummed that Tony and Ziva is only going to be on Paramount because I'm not subscribing to another service.
Oh
Not going to do it.
no,
But
really?
they're not putting it on CBS.
Oh bugger.
Not yet anyway.
Yeah,
But
we are okay, we just finished up the season where Jenny died, and then the new director takes over and splits up the team. And then
right.
right, so that's where we're at right now in NCIS.
That was a stressful moment for
It
me
was.
watching the show. Where you are right now, that was a
Yes.
stressful moment.
I was like, why are you breaking them up?
Well, all will be solved soon. So
Yeah. See, I watched the
about
program
the
and then I
Vietnam
was
War.
like,
Oh yeah.
oh.
Never
Mhm.
know. Yep.
I
Yep.
love documentaries. I do a lot of see, that's what I do during the day is I either watch my vampire and werewolf movies or I watch documentaries. And I've been doing a lot of documentaries lately.
Sarah, if you like to read, Kristen Hanna wrote a book called The Women. Stunning book. I love her books. Her writing is amazing. Kristen Hanna. And she wrote a book about the women in the Vietnam War.
Oh
And
wow.
it was, oh my gosh, I lived through the Vietnam War. I was, in fact, my husband had a draft number. We were in high school and college at the time, and they did away with the draft the year that his number was, he would have been drafted. So
Wow.
it was amazing to read this book and knowing all the stuff that I lived through being on this side of the ocean from it. It was crazy to read that book. It's really, really good. The Women, really good book.
I was born. I mean, did Vietnam go to 75?
The draft ended the year that he went to college, so 72 was
Okay, because I
when
was
the
born in
draft
71, but
ended.
my dad was in the end of his. So we were living in Japan when I was a baby, and apparently this is the story. My dad, because of the department he was in HVAC, and I'm not
Mhm.
sure the something Red Horse, but what they would do, it was they would go in behind enemy lines and take their equipment back that had been left over there
Mm.
and smuggle it back out of the country. Never knew any of this stuff until I was like an adult. I mean, really an adult, but
Yeah,
wow.
it was yeah, but anyway, we digress.
Yes.
We could sit and talk about books and movies and trash reality all day, but since the title of our podcast is There's No Crying in Crochet,
No crying.
that no, not going to cry today because it's Friday and I'm going to crochet when I get off the podcast. So here we
True.
go. So we appreciate all of you being with us today because we love hanging out with you.
Mhm.
We're going to end it for now and say goodbye and have in the United States, we are celebrating Memorial Day weekend. So we have an extended holiday on Monday. So have a great weekend, all of you listening, and we hope to see you again
Yes.
soon.
Yes.
Don't be strangers.
Be blessed.
All right.
Have a great
See
weekend.
ya. Bye.